It's just past 7:30 in India and live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I am Tanvi Taneja. And for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague, Kate Fisher from Washington, D.C. Good evening, Kate, from New Delhi.
And good morning to you, Tanvi, from Washington. It's 9 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. and 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Iran has denied it was involved in the drone attack which killed 3 US soldiers at a US base in Jordan on Sunday. And here, US President Joe Biden has vowed to respond. And more countries have halted funding to the UN's largest aid agency operating in Gaza over the alleged role of some of its staff in the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel. Back to you now, Tanvi, for the rest of the top stories in New Delhi.
White House says US does not want war with Iran or the region. Adds talks to release hostages in Gaza have been constructive. Maldivian opposition moves impeachment motion against President Mohamed Muizzu. Express concern on the sudden shift in foreign policy. Slam government for its anti-India stance. Dozens of tractors blocked a highway near Paris in protest against price pressures, taxes and green regulation. And Indian tunes reverberated at New Delhi's Vijay Chowk during beating the retreat ceremony, marking the end of the country's 75th Republic Day celebrations. Up first, news from Asia. In a big setback for Maldivian President Mohamed Muizzu, the main opposition party of the Maldives, the Maldivian Democratic Party, has moved impeachment motion against President Mohamed Muizzu. Maldivian Democratic Party, along with the Democrats, have gathered signatures of 55 members. The constitution, along with the parliament's standing orders, provides for impeachment of the president with 56 votes. The Ibrahim Solih-led MDP and the Democrats under Mohammad Nasheed had expressed concern on the direction of the foreign policy by the current Maldives government. They had said that the current administration appears to be making a sharp turn towards an anti-India stance. For more on the developments, we are now joined by our correspondent Ahmed Faruqi on the story from Colombo. Could you tell us something more, Faruqi, about the grounds on which the opposition parties are seeking to impeach the Maldivian president? And at this stage, what is the likelihood of the impeachment motion succeeding?
Good evening, Tanvi. You see, the developments in Maldives had been going on for quite some time. There had been, especially immediately after the current president, Mohamed Muizzu, had taken over as the president. There had been developments that had happened, even before the elections. The campaign that was run was on the basis of an India out kind of a strategy. And immediately after president had taken over as the president, rather than visiting India, he had a different port of call. He had visited Turkey, he had gone to UAE for attending the COP28, and thereafter he went on a state visit to China. This is, digressing from the traditional lines that Maldivian presidents have done in the past. That had happened earlier. However, later we noticed that the deputy ministers in his cabinet, in his government, had commented against India and the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And this was something that was unbecoming on any government as such, and on the part of any government official. However, the government had suspended these deputy ministers. Not much had happened further beyond this particular point. However, yesterday what had happened was, you see, Maldives has a system of checks and balances where the president is elected directly by the people, and he can bring in any member as a minister in his cabinet and the other council. However, the parliament, that is the Majlis, has to officially approve all of these members of the cabinet. And it was decided by the cabinet and the ruling party, the majority party, the MDP, and the Democrats, that 4 of the members of the cabinet would not be approved. And they had tried to give this as a whip. However, the ruling party members, the PPM and PNC coalition, had blocked the proceedings yesterday. And that had resulted in a ruckus. Thereafter, the PPM PNC had tried to move a no confidence motion against the speaker. And ultimately, this was, the last nail in the coffin. And the MDP and Democrats came together and they decided that they would move the impeachment motion against the Muizu government. They haven't clearly brought out the points on which they would be moving the motion. That will come out probably as maybe once we get to see.
So, Ahmed, at this stage, do you see the impeachment motion succeeding?
You see the Majlis currently, the total membership stands at 81. And the MDP, MDA, and the Democrats have sufficient numbers. They have 57 in total. That is one more than the required 2/3 as per the Article 100 of the government of 2008, the Constitution of 2008. So sufficient numbers are stacked up in favor of the MDP and Democrats.
Yeah.
But it's all, we'll have to wait and watch for the entire proceedings to happen before we could comment anything. Tanvi.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Ahmed Moin Faruqi joining us from Colombo on this story. Now on to West Asia. White House believes a single drone was responsible for targeting the US service members in Jordan over the weekend that killed 3 troops and injured 34. The attack marked a major escalation in tensions that have engulfed the West Asia, which could escalate into a wider conflict in the region. Meanwhile, Iran has denied involvement in the drone attack that killed 3 US service members in northeastern Jordan near Syria's border. Iran has termed the claims as baseless. Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Nasser Kanani also said the continuation of US strikes on Syria and Iraq, as well as the conflict in Gaza, will only intensify a cycle of instability in the region.
Iran monitors developments in the region with readiness and vigilance, and the responsibility for the consequences of accusations of incitement against Iran lies with the perpetrators of such baseless accusations.
Now, in the latest from the Israel-Hamas conflict, the Israel Defense Forces uncovered an underground tunnel beneath the Bani Suhaila cemetery in Khan Yunis. During the operation, they found explosives, sliding doors and blast-proof doors. The forces eliminated terrorists within the tunnel, discovering an office, operations room, command center and living quarters used by senior Hamas officials, including the Khan Yunis Brigade Battalion commander. The tunnel served as a strategic hub for Hamas's activities. Now, amid political pressure to act against the killing of 3 US troops in the drone attack allegedly by Iran-backed militia near Jordan's border with Syria, the US has said it does not want a wider war with Iran or the region. My colleague Kate Fisher is in Washington, D.C. She gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Kate, the White House dousing fears of a broader war in the region?
That's right, Tanvi. The White House is emphasising that the US is not seeking an escalated conflict with Iran or indeed the broader region. The Biden administration said it believes that a single drone was responsible for the targeting of US service members in Jordan over the weekend. The National Security spokesman, John Kirby, said that discussions regarding the release of hostages in Gaza have been positive, and the United States envisions a potential framework for another agreement. Meanwhile, the White House has once again reiterated there needs to be a two-state solution to the conflict in West Asia. Austria has also suspended payments to the United Nations Palestinian Aid Agency, UNRWA, calling for a comprehensive, swift and full investigation into accusations that some of the agency's employees were involved in the October the 7th Hamas attacks on Israel. Japan has also joined the United Kingdom, Germany, the US, Australia and Canada in pausing funding to the agency. UN officials have urged countries to reconsider. As per an Israeli intelligence dossier, over 190 United Nations Relief and Works Agency employees doubled as Hamas terrorists. US President Joe Biden has taken a swipe at his top Republican rival, Donald Trump, in a fiery campaign speech ahead of the primary in the state of South Carolina. Mr. Biden accused Mr. Trump of being a threat to the US economy and democracy. The Democratic primary in South Carolina is on Saturday, where President Biden is expected to win.
Donald Trump, when he was commander-in-chief, refused to visit a cemetery, U.S. cemetery outside of Paris for fallen American soldiers. And he referred to those heroes, and I quote, as suckers and losers. The only loser I see is Donald Trump.
Meanwhile, in the Republican race, presidential candidate Nikki Haley and Donald Trump's major rival has also been campaigning in South Carolina, her home state. She's trying to gain momentum against Trump after coming in third place behind him in the Iowa caucuses and second place in New Hampshire. Both candidates are now seeking victory in South Carolina, and polls show that Haley has a major gap to close there if she intends to slow down Trump's momentum following his 11-point victory in New Hampshire last week. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has been registered as a candidate for the March presidential election there. Supporters and opponents alike expect Putin to stroll to a new 6-year term, which, if he completes it, would make him Russia's longest-serving ruler since the 18th century. Those standing against him include anti-war candidate Boris Nadezhdin have until Wednesday to gather the required number of supporters' signatures to back their campaigns. Now to the latest from the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and Russian troops have attacked Ukrainian ammunition and fuel depots in the southeastern region of the country. Russian forces successfully thwarted numerous assaults from Ukraine. In retaliation, Ukrainian Air Force carried out strikes on areas where Russian military personnel, weapons and military equipment were concentrated, destroying some Russian military artilleries. To France, where farmers nationwide are continuing their protests, demanding better pay and living conditions, with the government dropping plans to gradually reduce state subsidies on agricultural diesel. Several major trunk roads in and out of the French capital, Paris, are being blockaded by farmers. The French government had dropped plans to gradually reduce state subsidies on agricultural diesel and promised an easing of environmental regulations. DD India's Ross Cullen has this report.
Well, this so-called siege of the French capital is proving the latest and biggest challenge by France's farmers to the government, with hundreds of tractors, trailers, other agricultural machinery blocking several trunk roads in and out of the French capital. Now, the government says that it is willing to meet representatives from France's unions, and there are further meetings expected on Monday evening local time in France between the Prime Minister and the head of the FNSEA, that's France's biggest farming union, to try to find an end to the crisis, to try to come to some agreement to end these demonstrations, which are nationwide now, and show that the farmers are not afraid of taking their demonstrations all the way to the capital. They say that they will continue with their protests until all their demands are met. France's farmers have been demonstrating against high production costs, low salaries, cheaper imports, agri-fuel taxes, red tape, also against the impact on their sector of the environmental transition and climate change policies, also demonstrating over price pressures from retailers. Now, the government has announced some of the measures last week to try to counter these demands, and it says that it is willing to discuss further policy moves on Tuesday ahead of a major policy declaration by the Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, who, let's remember, has not even been in the job for a month yet, a really serious crisis for him to deal with. Now, the farmers did on Monday want to try to reach the huge wholesale market at Rungis on the outskirts of Paris, where 3 million tonnes of food goes through that market every day. But the government did say that trying to blockade that market would be a red line for the Interior Minister. He said he was deploying 15,000 police officers on Monday to try to monitor these protests, monitor the blockades and make sure that order was maintained and make sure that this wholesale market at Rungis was not impacted. There are going to be these further talks which are going to try to bring an end to the crisis, but for now these demonstrations are continuing. Real pressure on the government from France's agricultural sector. In Paris, Ross Cullen reporting for DD India.
Finland has headed to the polls to pick a new president on Sunday. Former Prime Minister Alexander Stubb won the first round and will face the runner-up, former Foreign Minister Pekka Haavisto, in a runoff next month. With all votes counted, Stubb led the first round with 27.2% of the vote, while Haavisto came in second with 25.8%. That's all from me for now here in Washington. Back now to Tanvi in New Delhi.
Thank you very much, Kate, for joining us all here. Kate Fisher joining us from Washington, D.C. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacts with students, parents and teachers in Pariksha Pe Charcha program in New Delhi, says competition and challenges act as inspirations in life. Mosfilm, the state-owned giant of Soviet and Russian cinema that produced classics such as Battleship Potemkin, turns 100 today.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian and his Pakistani counterpart Jalil Abbas Gilani, during their meeting in Islamabad on Monday, resolved to expand security cooperation and increase efforts to mend ties after the tit-for-tat missile strikes this month at what they said were terrorist targets. The two countries also agreed to fight terrorism in their respective areas. The visit in the Pakistani capital comes days after their military tensions raised alarm about wider instability in the region since the conflict between Israel and Hamas erupted on October the 7th. In a significant development, Indian naval ship Sumitra responded to a distress message regarding hijacking of an Iranian-flagged fishing vessel, Iman, in the Arabian Sea. The fishing vessel had been boarded by pirates and the crew taken as hostages. Naval ship Sumitra intercepted the vessel and acted in accordance with the established SOPs to coerce the pirates for the safe release of the 17 crew members. The Indian naval ship is on anti-piracy operations along the east coast of Somalia and the Gulf of Aden. The mission deployed Indian naval ships on anti-piracy and maritime security operations in the Indian Ocean region symbolize the Indian Navy's resolve toward safety of all vessels and seafarers at sea. And now we take a look at what else is happening around the world. Germany's GDL train drivers union called off its industrial action earlier than planned on Monday as negotiations with rail operator Deutsche Bahn resumed. Both parties have agreed to negotiate in private over the next 5 weeks, and there will be no strikes until at least March the 3rd. Transport workers across Europe have staged strikes to demand higher wages to cope with the impact of inflation. A Hong Kong court on Monday ordered the liquidation of mega property group Evergrande. Evergrande had about $300 billion in liabilities. The group had failed to offer a concrete restructuring plan despite months of delays and several court hearings. Evergrande shares fell by more than 20% in Hong Kong after the announcement on Monday. Trading in the shares has now been suspended. It is noteworthy to know that Beijing is grappling with an underperforming economy, which is among the worst property market in 9 years, with more than 50 Chinese real estate developers turning defaulter. Mosfilm, the state-owned giant of Soviet and Russian cinema that produced classic films such as Battleship Potemkin and Solaris, marked its centenary today. Mosfilm has survived both the Soviet communist era, when films were subject to strict censorship, and the severe economic downturn that followed the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. So this fabled Mosfilm studio turns 100 today. A Japanese calligrapher, Fukuda Bosen, put on a calligraphy performance for over 200 spectators in Japan's Yamagata prefecture. Bosen used a snowfield like a sheet of paper to write kanji characters with a large brush weighing 4 kgs on a section of compressed snow, sending a message of hope for people affected by the earthquake in Noto on New Year's Day. Back to New Delhi now. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with school students, teachers and parents at the 7th edition of Pariksha Pe Charcha 2024 program in the national capital today. The interactive program saw the participation of nearly 3,000 students. With the final examinations for various primary and higher schools, secondary, due in the coming months, the participants discussed their issues and concerns with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. PM Modi said that competition and challenges act as an inspiration in life. Earlier, Prime Minister Modi also visited the art and science exhibition put up by the school students in the New Delhi's Bharat Mandapam. Now, the inaugural edition of India-Saudi Arabia joint military exercise called Sadatan Sikh commenced today at Mahajan in Rajasthan. The exercise is scheduled to be conducted from Monday to the 10th of February. The Saudi Arabian contingent, comprising 45 personnel, is being represented by the Royal Saudi Land Forces. The aim of the exercise is to train troops of both sides for joint operations in semi-desert terrain under Chapter 7th of the United Nations Charter. The exercise will involve establishment of the mobile vehicle checkpost, coordinate search operation, house intervention drills, reflex shooting, slithering and sniper firing. The exercise will provide an opportunity to both the contingents to strengthen their bond. It will act as a platform to achieve shared security objectives, enhance the level of defense cooperation and foster bilateral relations between the two friendly countries. India Energy Week 2024 will be held from 6th to 9th of February in Goa. The event anticipates the presence of 17 energy ministers, over 35,000 attendees, 900 plus exhibitors. This was revealed by Union Petroleum Minister Hardeep Puri during a presser in New Delhi on Monday. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will engage in a roundtable discussion with CEOs from the oil and gas sector. Tapas Bhattacharya reports.
India Energy Week 2024 is expected to be a groundbreaking event that stands as an epitome of India's commitment to shaping the future of energy. Following the resounding success of the 2023 edition, this year's event, taking place from 6th to 9th of February in Goa, promises to be even more transformative.
India Energy Week, to that extent, is a golden opportunity for all these related developments on the energy front to be showcased and provide a platform for further development and growth. The event will also feature increased focus across the entire energy value chain, including 3 sessions on biofuels, 3 sessions on hydrogen, and 2 sessions on CCUS.
India Energy Week 2024 will be India's largest and only all-encompassing energy exhibition and conference, bringing together the entire energy value chain, and will serve as a catalyst for India's energy transition goals. A gathering of over 35,000 attendees, 9,000 exhibitors, 400 speakers and 4,000 plus delegates converged from across 100 countries.
6 countries which will have pavilions there. 6 countries. This is apart from the exhibitors, who are 900. 6 countries who have pavilions there. These are Canada, Germany, Netherlands, Russia, UK and USA. There is a Make in India pavilion with more than 300 exhibitors to showcase innovative solutions which are being brought forward by the Indian MSMEs.
In just 2 years, India Energy Week has set itself apart, fueled by India's robust economic credentials and a thriving investment climate. The stage is set for collaboration, discovery, and the forging of partnership that will define the trajectory of India's energy landscape. Delegates from over 100 countries will take part in the second edition of the India Energy Week that will take place in Goa. The stakeholders will be keeping an eye on the newest solution and find ways to mitigate the climate change impact, and at the same time find certain solution that will help in that. With camera person Bhim, this is Pariksha Pe Charcha for DNA India from Delhi.
In a heartwarming incident, a stranded snow leopard cub was rescued in the village of Kardong in northern India's Leh. Isolated and cornered by feral dogs, the brave cub had sought refuge atop a sacred stupa. The villagers were quick to respond and contacted the wildlife department while quietly guarding the cub from a distance until the rescue team arrived. Leh's divisional forest officer Dhawan Rawat led the rescue team and together with the locals reunited the young snow leopard with its mother after carrying out the necessary medical examinations.
तो हमें ऑन 26 के मॉर्निंग में एक फ़ोन आया अराउंड 11:30 के करीब कि एक स्नो लेपर्ड को डॉग चेस करके उसको एक जगह पे जो खरदों विलेज में है बोल के मुझे लोगों का फ़ोन आया था। वहाँ पे पहुँचते हमने अपना जो रेस्क्यू टीम ने उसको लेपर्ड को हमने रेस्क्यू किया और वहाँ पे जो हमने रेस्क्यू किया तो हमें पता चला कि एक स्नो लेपर्ड का काप था जो रात को अपने मदर्स के बिछड़ा हुआ था।
And the iconic Raisina Hill at New Delhi's Vijay Chowk came alive with the illuminations as part of beating the retreat ceremony that marked the culmination of India's 75th Republic Day celebrations. The ceremony is held every year in India on the evening of January 29th, 3 days after the country's Republic Day. The ceremony featured musical performances by the bands of Indian Army, Navy, Air Force and Central Armed Police Forces. 31 captivating and foot-tapping Indian tunes were played before a distinguished audience, which included India's President Draupadi Murmu, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, among others. The colours and standards were cased and flags lowered. Indeed, it was nostalgia for the times gone by. So So that's all for this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram at DD India Live. I am Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.